Say this word with me. Hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia. Easy, right? No? Well, let's try again. Hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia. Getting easier? Say it with me. Hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia. Okay, so you're probably sick of hearing it, but you're going to hear it a lot more. And I'm sure you're asking, what does hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia mean? We're going to find out using root words. Root words are parts used to build words and help give them meaning. Like building words out of Lego blocks, each individual root word has its own meaning to it that we can use to help us decipher the meaning of words, as well as create words that are funny sounding, like hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia. Now, there are a lot of things that I could say about root words right now, but I promise I will get to them in a minute. Right now, let's take a second and just take apart this word. So if we start off with hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia, you might immediately recognize this word at the end here, phobia, meaning fear. We might be familiar with words like arachnophobia or agoraphobia, which mean the fear of spiders and the fear of heights. So, just like those words, hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia is the fear of something, and obviously it's the fear of sesquipedalians. That makes sense, right? We all are familiar with sesquipedalians? No? Okay, well, let's take this word apart as well. Sesquipedalian means a long word, and this actually has multiple root words inside of it. We have sesqui and ped. Sesqui means half, and ped means foot. This is the Latin word from back in the Roman days, meaning half a foot long. So, when applied to meaning of words, this becomes a long word. If you were to write it out, it might be a foot and a half long. So, sesquipedaliophobia is simply the fear of long words. But we're not done yet. Next we have monstro, which you might think means something to do with monsters or hideous, ugly beings, but really monstro just means to show. So, monstrosesquipedaliophobia is the fear of being shown long words. Lastly, we have hippopoto, which I'm sure we all recognized at the very beginning, is a reference to hippopotamus, one of the largest land animals that there is. So this root word is thrown on there just to make the entire word longer. Hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia isn't a real condition. It's not a real fear that people have, as far as I know, although some long words are kind of scary. When whoever made this word up decided that it needed to exist, they wanted to be funny and make the word long. This is, if not the second, then the third longest word in the English language, and you'll see how that's ironic when I tell you the final meaning of this word. Hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia means, drumroll please, the fear of being shown a word that is so long that when written out it is nearly a foot and a half long because it reminds you of a hippo. Pretty funny, right? With all of this in mind, let's talk more about root words and then use what we know to break down a word that's not quite as silly as this one. As I said, root words are parts used to build words and help give them their meaning. Root words get their meaning from other languages. So, in most cases, this is going to be Latin or Greek, two really old languages that we just kind of still use sometimes to come up with new words. This is used a lot in science, when a new animal is discovered or a new medicine is described. we'll take Latin words and start stringing them together to describe what we came up with. There are 3 types of root words. We have prefixes, infixes, and suffixes. All them fixes. A prefix is a root at the beginning of a word. Think of the hippopotamus at the beginning of Hippopotomonstrossesquipedaliophobia, or sesqui at the beginning of sesquipedalian. They're at the beginning of the word. An infix is in the middle of the word. Think of monstro in the middle of our example from before, or sesquipedalian for that matter. Those roots were both in the middle of that long word. And finally, a suffix is a root word at the end of a word. Think of phobia, the first root that we identified, meaning fear. Prefixes and suffixes are a lot more common than infixes, because for a word to get so long that it needs an infix is pretty uncommon. So for now, just try to remember prefix versus suffix. Now there's one more thing that you need to keep in mind, which is that all 3 of these together are called affixes. Affix is actually a word that means to attach something to something else. If I attach a light to my wall, I might say that I have affixed my light fixture. An affix is just another way to say root word. So if you ever hear someone say, "What is that affix?" think root word. Say this word with me. Anti-disestablishmentarianism. Pretty easy, right? One more time. Anti-disestablishmentarianism. This is the longest word in the English language, according to some people. Some would say that there are longer words like hippopotomonstrossesquipedaliophobia, but that's not real. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And there's one pharmaceutical drug out there with a name even longer. But with words like those that aren't actually useful outside of a limited context, anti-disestablishmentarianism is the longest word in the English language. Let's take this apart. We're going to start with the end again. Ism means an ideology or a belief. So anti-disestablishmentarianism is the belief in something. Now, if we skip ahead to the beginning, anti means to be against something. So this belief that anti-disestablishmentarianism represents is a belief that is actually against something rather than being for something. Next we have establish, which is a word that we should already know. It means to set something up or to build something. Establish can have a suffix at the end of it. Meant. Establishment is something that is already set up. This suffix means a structure. So an establishment is a structure that's been set up by someone. Sometimes it can also mean a structure of society. Establish can have a prefix, dis. Disestablish means to take something down. Dis is a prefix that means not. So not establishing something is the opposite of establishing it, which is taking it down. So disestablishment is the taking down of a structure, or in some cases, taking down of the structure of society. Aryan is not just a word you hear in World War II movies. Aryan is an affix used to mean someone who believes in something. And it's actually the combination of 2 different suffixes. Ari, meaning to believe, and an, meaning a person. So an Aryan is a person who believes in something. All right, using all of those different root words that we found, let's determine what anti-disestablishmentarianism actually means. What do you think it is? Anti-disestablishmentarianism is the system of beliefs that is against people who are disestablishmentarians. A disestablishmentarian is somebody who is in favor of taking down the established way of life. So, anti-disestablishmentarianism is just a long way of saying that you're in favor of keeping things the way that they are, and you're against people who think that they should change. Congratulations! You just took apart the longest, air quotes, word in the English language. Now that you know how root words are used, it's time to start learning as many of them as you can. The more root words that you know, the more words you know. If you knew what all of those roots were, you wouldn't have to have been told what hippopotamonstrossesquipedalian phobia means, or anti-disestablishmentarianism. You would have been able to figure it out for yourself. So go learn as many root words as you can, and your vocabulary will expand to the ends of the earth.